Good evening. Today we're going to be talking about the Woodlands National Park analog horror. I guess we'll just dive straight into it. So the Woodlands National Park analog horror is set in 1975 and 1976, and it is a park that is owned by a corporation named the Dyer Corporation, and the story follows some rangers that are creating some videos for their visitor centers. The analog horror kind of splits off into three different storylines, each storyline being for the type of creature that resides in the national park. And because of this, I'm going to be talking about each creature slash storyline that goes along with that creature. So to kick things off, we'll start with the Wendigo. It starts off with the Rangers creating an infomercial on how to survive a Wendigo encounter. However, in the creating of this video, they were only able to get one tip out before they encounter a Wendigo themselves. This tip being, do not run. The reason why they say that is because these things can run 45 miles per hour, so if it wants to get you, it will. The two Rangers creating the infomercial, Alex and John, get interrupted by an encounter with a Wendigo themselves. And instead of following the tips that they are providing to the residents at the park, they start running as fast as they can, yelling out to each other that they need to just keep running. That brings into doubt the tips that they are providing to the campers. During this encounter, one of the Rangers, John, ends up dying to this Wendigo. However, Alex is able to escape. The video cuts there and we move on to the next video that is set a day after John's death, and it is a armed militia that the Dyer Corp has hired to go retrieve John's body and go hunt down this Wendigo. So ironically, John died on Dead Man's Trail, and that's where the video starts off. The militia moves from John's death site and starts following a trail. The armed militia gets about 63 miles from John's death site and finds an abandoned camp that has obviously been attacked by this Wendigo. They decide to set up camp and wait for nightfall. That's when the video skips forward to nightfall, and we can see one of the armed militia getting absolutely murked by this Wendigo. That's when the cameraman, obviously not a part of this armed militia, gets absolutely freaked out and hides in one of the tents. The Wendigo follows him and tries to attack him. However, one of the armed militia is able to fire around into the Wendigo, and it sounds like it runs off. And that's where that video cuts off. Following the Wendigo storyline, it then cuts to John's wife with one of the Dyer Corp representatives is offering her money so long as she signs an NDA. Alex, the other ranger, is in the room with her while she's on the phone to this representative, and she is very reluctant to sign this NDA. While wanting more answers, she lets out that John has told her everything about the park and she knows what's going on. That's when Alex stops her and lets her know that people are listening, and he starts writing on a piece of paper in front of her, and we can deduce that Alex is letting her know that if she doesn't sign this NDA, she is going to be killed by the Dyer Corp. And that's where the storyline of the Wendigo has concluded. So next we'll be talking about the Walker. The Walkers were believed to be a folklore depicting a creature that is 12 to 40 feet tall and completely invisible. However, advancements with technology, infrared has been able to determine that these creatures do in fact exist, but just do not reflect any light. These creatures only come out in the daytime, otherwise they'll burn up from the sunlight. Another detail about walkers is that if you have a radio nearby and it starts playing up, the tip that is provided is to grab the radio and say, "Ranger, Ranger, Ranger." If no one responds and it's just static, that means that there is a walker nearby. Walkers are also believed to be passive, however we'll later find out that that is not the case. So the storyline starts off with three campers just strolling through the forest. While they're setting up camp, the audience can realize that their radio is playing up, but they seem to not know what's going on. That's when the walker viciously attacks the three, killing two and throwing the other 40 feet in the air. And fortunately, this camper is able to survive. Then we pick up with the Rangers giving details about the walkers when they are interrupted, getting a radio call, letting them know about this camper that's just been attacked. The Rangers rush him to a nearby visitor center and is able to get him into a stable condition. Alex and the other Ranger go to the site where these campers just had their encounter with a walker. They find blood and guts everywhere and a tent strung up in the trees. But then they get a radio call letting them know that the camper is now acting erratic, and they go rush off to go help him. When they arrive at the visitor center, he is in a scuffle with the ranger that was looking after him. He shoots that ranger, shoots Alex, and the other ranger is able to subdue him. with his trusty shotgun. A few days after this encounter, the Rangers are on a news program lying to everyone, saying that camper was in fact the one that killed the other 2 campers and killed the ranger that was looking after him. And that concludes the lore of the walker. We will now talk about the cave critter. The cave critter has 6 appendages and is about 10 to 12 feet in length. It has superhuman strength and does not leave their residence in their cave. The way how cave critters reproduce is through their saliva. So what happens is, if a survivor is stupid enough to go inside of a cave and a cave critter bites them, there's a 45, 45, 10 rule. There's a 45% chance they're going to die, a 45% chance that they're going to turn into a cave critter, and a 10% chance that there will be no effect at all. There are some signs if you're the unlucky 45% that becomes a cave critter. You will have rabies symptoms. You'll then start to exhibit superhuman strength, and you will have an undying urge to make your way back to the cave. Once in the cave, the transformation takes about 6 months. During this, the other cave critters will provide and protect you. So the story of the cave critters starts off with a camper named Todd Harris. Now, Todd Harris was bitten by a cave critter. However, he concealed his bite when leaving the park and later made his way to a doctor, and the doctor could recognize that it was a cave critter bite and called up the park and let them know. Once this was found out, they had him transported back to the park. However, he completely freaks out and it looks like he's killed in the process of freaking out. However, 6 months later, some people are hanging around an abandoned hospital when they are attacked by a cave critter. One of them dies and the other contacted Diacorp. Diacorp sent 10 men in to either subdue or capture Todd Harris. However, only 3 were able to make it out alive and 2 of them were bit. Now, a new video was recently released and it was just after this news program. They feel extremely guilty about the whole situation with John, and the other ranger that's not Alex, I don't remember his name, brings up that he's been in contact with John's wife, and John's wife let him know that there was a trap door inside of their house, and when she went down and found cave paintings, and there were 3 photos of these cave paintings. The first photo is what seems to be people worshipping a tree and someone coming out of the ground from the tree. The second photo seems to be either people interacting or trading with cave critters, and the third photo is of a walker in broad daylight building the pyramids, which is a bit out there, but that's what's happening. So, and that's where the series kind of comes to a season finale, and they've let everyone know that season 2 is in production. I'll also add that from these photos, they've deduced that there's something going on with immortality. Worshipping the tree gives people immortality. And then at the very end of this, there's a QR code that if you scan, it just shows a family tree that ends, I think, in just before 1900, which leads the viewer to believe that maybe one of these people are the owners of Diacorp. They haven't really gone into much detail, but speculating a little bit, it seems like Diacorp is killing these campers to make themselves immortal is probably my best guess. However, I have no clue as to what's going on with the walkers that are building pyramids and trading with cave critters. I'm not too sure. I guess we'll find out in season 2.